Hey, what's up everybody? It's Wolf from TestResults.io. In today's video, we will be talking about hard-coded weights in your test automation solution. You know that hard-coded weights are things which actually happen quite often in the code. They are the main driver for flaky tests and for test cases failing on your target environment. So why do we introduce them in the first place? Well, think about it. Let's say there is a control you need to wait for, or you need to search for after a certain interaction with the subject under test is done. So instead of doing it the smart way, you say, hey, I'll just put a Thread.Sleep, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, and it will work. It runs on your PC locally, everything is fine. You say, hey, I done it, it's perfect, I ship it now, I deploy it to the server, it will run with the next build, everything will be fine. Is that the case? Well, no. Usually what happens is you have a boom. Nothing works, the test case aborts because the control cannot be found, and those 3 seconds that you placed actually didn't make much sense. What is the reason for that? It's quite simple. Your local PC works completely different than the test environment on your server. So your local PC most likely has better CPU, GPU, more RAM, maybe a solid-state drive. I mean, it can be completely different than the place where the test case will be executed. So for that, those 3 seconds do not make any sense. And it also doesn't make sense to increase it to a different time. Because yeah, it might be different again next time you execute it. You might have 100 test cases being executed simultaneously on your server, and that will impact the performance as well. So what is the idea behind that? I mean, the only problem is that we cannot find those controls, and we want to be sure that basically we find them, right? So for that, hard-coded weights, I will give you 3 solutions today so that you know how to avoid them and how to get rid of them in your test automation solution. So, 1, instead of having a timeout beforehand, so saying Thread.Sleep 3 seconds, we introduce a global timeout. So what would be the global timeout in our case? Well, it's quite simple. Instead of saying, hey, before we search for each single control, let's say for a minute, so 60 seconds, we will try to find the control for 60 seconds. So what will happen is that we will execute our code, we will say, hey, search for this particular control, let's say a login button. But search for 60 seconds. So if you cannot find it with the 60 seconds time frame, it means something is really wrong with your subject under test. That's way better than doing it vice versa and just hard coding a value and saying, hey, 3 seconds done. Of course, there are cases where you will have to override that value. But if you have a global way to search for controls for a certain amount of time, then at least you don't have to put any thread sleeps. And hey, if it takes 20 seconds or 17 seconds or 10 seconds, it's still fine to you. The control is found. As long as you are not testing the performance of the system and just the functional part, then all is fine for you. You can wait for that control to appear. Believe me, that is fine. Second option. Well, second solution is quite interesting as well, which actually combines the first one as well. So what do we do usually when we test the software? Regardless of if we are doing it automatically or if we are doing it manually, we interact with the subject under test. We click around from left to right, we move the mouse, then we click somewhere else, something happens on the screen, right? So for each action that you are doing with the subject under test, there is a reaction. Sounds obvious, doesn't it? Well, I think so as well. So for that, you should check if the interaction with the element you have triggered the interaction on works. So let me give you an example just that you have the context. Imagine we are doing an online shopping platform, and you want to add something to your cart like a toothbrush, let's say. You add the plus button or a basket, you press the basket button, whatever, and you expect that the cart display will change and you'll have one element in it. So instead of saying, hey, I wait for that control and then once I click, I'll have a Thread.Sleep and wait for the other control to update, I do something different. I check my interactions. So if I click on this wonderful toothbrush and I select the plus button, I expect that the new control will appear. So that allows me to have interactions check within my code. So aside from removing the hard-coded weights and binding them to the interactions within the subject under test, you have one more advantage. Once you will be debugging your test cases, if something goes wrong, you know directly where it failed. I mean, think about it. Following our example, let's say it didn't work. I selected the plus button, I went to the card, I did the checkout, I want to pay, and oh, my toothbrush is not there. What happened to my toothbrush? Well, it failed 4 steps before. But, well, we didn't notice. Why we didn't notice? Because we didn't check. And I'm not telling you that you should check the whole functionality, but just the control. If the correct control was displayed after a certain interaction with the system took place. If that is done, then debugging will be easier, and again, hard-coded weights are gone. So that was solution 2. But there is a solution 3, and this is actually quite a fancy one. I don't know if other engines do offer it. I know we do. But if not, find a way to do it, because it is actually very, very fun. So what you need to do is check after interaction if the screen is stable. Doesn't ring a bell? Well, let's do it differently. Now imagine you're loading a page. You are loading a page of, let's continue with our online shopping platform. And all of the elements are already there, but they are not rendered. You have some complex graphics, you have some stuff on it, and it's not rendered. So you don't know if it is done or not. Even though you checked your jQuery, you checked your JavaScript execution that it has finished, it is still building the page. So instead of waiting for all those controls to load, do it a bit differently. Wait until the screen is stable, that there are no visual changes on the screen available. If there are no visual changes and you have a stable screen, meaning that a part of the screen or the whole screen doesn't have any fluctuations, you don't see any updates on it, only then you begin testing with the controls you want. That doesn't mean you can remove the previous 2 solutions, but at least it means that you will make sure that those controls might become available already and that you are not searching for them too early. So that's it. There are 3 solutions to your hard-coded weights. If you like them, you can read about them in our blog. That will come live, I guess, next week. And if you like it or don't like it, just leave a comment below and stay tuned for the next videos about test automation and also about test results.io.